Hello and welcome to Middlebury 5.0. I am your host, Officer Chris Mason. And with me in the studio today is Victor Nuovo. Welcome to the show, Victor.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming on.
Well, it's a pleasure.
And your name is probably pretty familiar to people in Middlebury. I would think there aren't that many people who haven't heard of Victor Nuovo.
Well, maybe.
I know you served on the Selectboard for a number of years.
I started, I think, 10 years ago, and I was on for 8 years, yeah. So.
And you resigned from the Selectboard a little while ago, and now you are a candidate in the upcoming Selectboard election.
That's right.
So there's a bit of a Selectboard roller coaster in the last.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't think there's been a lot of change in the Selectboard and so on. We've been through some interesting times and so on like that. Yeah.
So I mean, when you resigned from the Selectboard, the town offices was it was a very controversial, very divisive issue in the community.
Right.
There were a lot of people that were very outspoken, and there were some words exchanged, and things got pretty heated.
Well, I mean, obviously there was a difference of opinion as to whether this was a good thing to do.
Absolutely.
And a lot of it had to do, obviously, with moving the location and the negotiations with the college and so on and so forth. And of course there were questions raised as to whether I had, conflict of interest, which I didn't have. I mean, I have no financial benefit that comes from the college that would increase or decrease anything that I do. But, and in fact, I care more about the town than I do about the college, I mean, as far as that goes. But it seemed to me that the best way to let the situation settle itself was to remove myself, and I did, and I hope people are happy with the product that we have now, the two new buildings. They're there, and as I understand it, and now that I'm running for the Select Board, I mean, one of the issues I would say is I want to make sure that the college is clear that the property that remains that will go under their ownership will be a public park in perpetuity and not part of the college campus. And I think that will be, when it's all done, fine. So.
And that was their stated intent, was to their stated intent was to make it into a park.
There's an agreement. Yes. I mean, it was part of the agreement that that it would not be. See, that property originally, I mean, it's not really. It's under the aegis of. It was intended to be public property and sort of school property. And in fact, I don't think it could be used for anything else for school or government. In other words, there's no way that the college could turn around and sell it into commercial interest or something like that.
So you couldn't get a big parking garage
that's
there.
In the deed. Well, that's in the deed, I think, and so on. But a public park, I think, would be lovely. And but that and that obviously should come as a result of all of this. But yeah, I think I'm sure that the administrative staff of the town are looking forward to being in the new building. It's really.
I would imagine that they are. I've spoken to some of them. I think they're really ready to move out.
The recreation program is the new gym. I think they'll be moving in this month, and
I think pretty soon.
And they're, I think, quite ecstatic about what they'll have.
I do believe they are. I know Terry Arnold. I know
she's
very.
She's been working very hard to see that things
sure
get done right, and I think. And they'll be right on the scene with their offices and so on. I think it would be a very nice arrangement.
Well, certainly they look like beautiful buildings.
I think so. I mean, I think I walk by uh, the new town hall almost every day, and I think it's a handsome building. I'm quite. I think John Dale, the architect, is really quite skilled, and all the details that he's done and so on, and of course I think the Kathleen Ramsey and her staff have been involved in planning the inside of it. So I think, and so I think, and the town clerk has been. Anne has asked for things, and I think gotten them rightly, so she can do her work better. And so,
So what's drawing you back to the Selectboard? What has inspired this move?
Well, I mean, I suppose I could give you one word or one sentence. It's my duty, in a sense. I mean, and not that. Sort of, it's everyone's. I mean, I suppose you could walk down the street and see someone who has lived in Middlebury for years and say, "Why haven't you run for the select board?" I mean, it's not a career, nor I think is the legislature. I mean, in other words, it's the willingness of people to maintain town government, and which provides for public safety and for other necessary roads and programs like our recreation program, which I think is really excellent, and that this really can't be managed properly. I mean, we have a staff, and I think an excellent staff, Kathleen and Terry and so on, other people of that sort who really work very hard. But finally, the select board is the government of the town, and I believe very deeply in town government. I mean, without, in that sense, I follow the view of Thomas Hobbes that if you don't have civil government, you don't have civil peace, and it's we've had 1761. We've been going with this, and I think it's I mean, it's a nonpartisan thing. It's a matter of simply getting business done and setting the right policies. So yeah, I mean, I don't. It isn't a matter of saying, well, this is my career, and something like that, and as though I were running for president, and I thought of that, but I decided not to. But
was it a choice between select board or the presidency?
Yeah, right. Yeah, I weighed them.
Then Bernie beat you to it.
But it's it's I think. I say I enjoy the work as far as that goes, because you do feel you're getting something done and you're providing something good. And as I say it's a duty. I think, I mean, I wish other people would see it that way, and I realize, and many do. I mean, and of course, I'm retired. I don't have to worry about a business, or I mean, I do have my scholarly work, which I continue doing, but I can do that. I'm my own boss as far as that goes, and I don't make any money from it anyway, so it's not something that I have to worry about. And,
well, I think it's a tremendous public service serving on the select board. It's a big commitment. It's a lot of work.
It is, although it's not so overwhelming that you can't do it with. I mean, I think that the function of the select board is not to micromanage the town. I mean, that we've got a town manager who is very skilled at seeing that things get done at the right times, and
Yeah, I can testify to that. She's very, very
yeah,
adept.
yeah. I mean, and I mean, we've got Tom Hanley. I mean, we've got people who take care of all that. But I think in setting policy, in looking at sort of long-term goals that the town needs, how can we, well, in setting the budget and trying to figure out ways that you can do it. I'm rather pleased. Apparently, the upcoming budget is going to be the same as it was last year. So, and part of it has been the cheap price of oil, but I think that those are hard things to do. But the nice thing about it is that I think it's always been, ever since I've been either on or observing the select board, that it isn't kind of partisan thing. I mean, you just figure out, you may have disagreements between individuals on the select board as to how to accomplish something, but it isn't as though my party stands for this and I'm not going to give you an inch. I mean, it's a government works best when you have compromise and when there are differences and trying to work out a workable solution.
It's been my privilege to interview a lot of members of the select board on this show over the last several years, and I have to say I've been consistently impressed with the dedication that the people have, that they're coming. They all seem to be coming to the select board for the right reasons, a sense of civic duty. But also with the general intelligence, the expertise, the wisdom that these candidates display. I think it's astonishing.
Well, I think we've got some very good people.
I think we do.
I'm very sorry to see Dean George go off.
For sure. Well, that's going to change the character.
I could say that if instead of voting for me, people write in his name, but he would not be happy if. But
he might have something to say.
But
about
I think he's been superb as a member of the board, and I mean I've known him. Actually, I really got to know him well by being on the board with him, and he's a very special person. But yeah, I think we're fortunate, and I hope it'll always stay that way. Yeah.
So, I know most people probably already know this, but I feel like we should mention that your wife is Betty Nuovo.
Okay.
Also a very prominent local figure.
We've almost 63 years we've been together.
That is impressive.
Yes, and she's the love of my life, I have to say. I mean, I'm happy to say that.
That's fabulous.
And I mean, I never really paid much attention to politics, local politics, really until Betty. I mean, Betty really got into it when she was working with the League of Women Voters, and it's always been her. She always had a very public conscience that really motivated her, and if I have anything of it, I think I got it from her. Yeah.
Well, she's been serving in the House for decades now.
30 years.
30 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. She also served on the select board, and quite a lot of things too. I mean, it's quite a list of 30
list
years.
of accolades.
Yeah, but 30 years in the Vermont House. Yeah.
Right. So you mentioned that you're retired. You retired from the college.
Yeah, I mean, I retired from the faculty actually in 1994. I started in 1962.
Sure.
I retired in 1964, and I was 62 when I retired, and in 1994, and I decided college had a very good early retirement program, when I came to Middlebury, and I remember the president then, James Armstrong, used to say that we're scholars who teach, and that's what higher education is all about. And that is to say, you're supposed to be adding to the wealth of knowledge and
sure.
And in modest ways. But I've always taken that seriously, so I retired so I could really do the scholarly part of it, and I've been fairly fortunate that I've had the opportunities to do that, and so that's been my work. I mean, I consider I go to work every day, and I sometimes in the evening I'll work on it, and it's the kind of thing you can. Sometimes it'll wake me up in the middle of the night and I get an idea.
Yep, that's probably as it should be.
Yeah, but I've been very happy doing that.
Right. And I know that you're a Locke scholar.
John Locke, yes. Yeah. Well, that I could really have a long story on that. I mean.
I was hoping you could explain Locke to me, because I always found it very befuddling when I was.
I mean, he's of course known, I think, more by his political writings, the two treatises of government, and
sure.
But he also wrote another book called an essay concerning human understanding, which is really the first sort of study of sort of psychology of learning in a way, how the mind forms its ideas, and then he was actually a physician. He wrote a lot of things on medicine. He wrote theological works. And when I retired, I went to Princeton, and I met a man who was a professor at Oxford. He's retired, and he was interested in what I was doing, working on Locke. And he told me, well, if you really are serious about doing Locke studies, you have to go to Oxford, because Oxford has all his papers, and I mean really
wow. Papers. That must have got you salivating when you
well, he not only that, but he arranged for me to go there. He got me a fellowship, and I had access to the Locke room, which is a huge room with all, his books, his notebooks.
That must have been an incredible experience.
And
know somebody so in depth through their writings, to study them, and then there you are with the actual writings.
Yeah, I went for about 9-10 years. I would go every fall for about 3 months, and they'd give me the key to the Locke room, and usually I was in there by myself, and I would go in and I open the cabinets, and you take out these manuscripts, and I got very familiar. So the short of it is that I became a Locke scholar, and I finished a book which is now in the press, and I have another one I'm working on. But I've published quite a bit, and it's been, well, anyway, you asked me to tell you about him. He of course
explain Locke for me in 4 sentences.
Well, he wrote. He wrote the classic work that really emphasizes the importance of the separation of powers, so that the legislative and the executive and the judiciary are separate. And
so some of the really foundational things that
really, in other words, it means that the president can't, or the king can't, just has to act with Parliament, and the sovereignty of the state rests with the people. I mean, this is really his. In fact, I think it'd be fair to say that the American system was designed largely by using his sort of constitutional representative government. where, you know, if the people didn't like the people who were ruling them, they could vote them out of office. I mean, it was that, and where, you know, the executive couldn't interfere with the courts, and the legislature could make laws without being dictated to by a sovereign, and I mean, that was really his contribution. So it is a major. But he was also the founder of modern empiricism,
right?
And
that's how I know him best. I was a Hume man when I was in college.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
very enamored of David Hume.
Yeah, well, David Hume is. I'm very fond of him too. But you know, and he did a lot of actually medical research. He was very interested in epidemics and infectious diseases, and I haven't really. Those papers are beyond me in many ways, but and I think the science is beyond it anyway. So it's not something that you would go back to.
Sure. Take an academic interest.
But it's interesting. I mean, I'm asthmatic, and so is he. And
I'm an asthmatic also.
Well, I'd go through the notebooks, and there would be. You'd always put a key word on the top, and there was asthma, and you know. You met with someone, and they tried this, and so on and so forth. Yeah.
So he was conducting research.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, the whole experimental method was something that he was very much pushing. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because he would have, you know, right there in the center of the Enlightenment. I mean, that was when the experimental method was starting to develop.
Yeah.
Hugely pivotal transitional point historically. Fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah. He's a very interesting figure. Yeah. We're going to talk about his girlfriend and
Locke's girlfriend.
Oh, he never married, but there's a woman whom he met who was a daughter of a philosopher, actually, who did marry, and she lived in his house. He lived in her house. I mean, for the last 10 years and they were. I guess I honestly think I think Locke died a virgin, if you want my just knowing him as I do. But they were platonic lovers, and they were intellectually. And she wrote 2 books actually, and people used to say, "Well, he probably wrote them," and they were published anonymously, and they were credited to her, but you could because her style, the style of the books, sort of resembled Locke's. And I said, well, maybe his style resembled hers. I mean, she was a very smart woman, and self-taught. She taught herself French so that she could teach her child to speak French. I mean, she really is a really remarkable person, and I can tell you all these little things. You find out a lot when you look at these letters.
Absolutely. And, I'm sure it uncovers all kinds of layers.
Yeah. Laundry lists, even.
So getting back to kind of Middlebury and the upcoming election, which is going to be on March 1st, I believe.
I think so. Yeah.
The town meeting is the day before, and then
that's right.
On
That's
March
right.
1st,
yes, it's early this year, so there are 5 people, so only 3 of us will.
That's my understanding.
Yeah.
So what are the issues that you feel are pressing? What is the Selectboard going to be facing over the next few years? Do you think it's
the most critical issue, I suppose, is the railroad bridges, and that's of course underway. I mean, it's not. I think it's a question of whether it's going to happen or not. But the question is whether it's going to happen in such a way that it's going to hurt the town. And I think that the function, and they're doing it now. It's not that they're waiting for me. So, is being very careful that the town is not harmed, or as little harm done in terms of just disrupting the activity. I mean, this is happening right in the heart of the town. I mean, and I'm very happy. I don't know if you know, the Episcopal Church has been running meetings where community meetings where I guess they've had the first one where they sort of affirmed that the downtown is valuable, and it's a treasure, and we need to preserve it, and then they're going to talk about ways that businesses can be sustained, how people would continue to use the downtown. I mean, the fear is, of course, is that it's going to become so chaotic down there that that people won't go there, and I have a strong desire. Middlebury is a market town. When we came to Middlebury, our children, well, we had only one child, and our second child was born here. I mean, we did all our shopping downtown. Right. I mean, and maybe that can't be replicated, but it should be a place where people go and gather and they do things that are important for the community, and so that, I mean, that's an issue.
Well, I feel like Middlebury has a small town identity, and a big part of that is that
and we have a beautiful downtown. We have to keep it that way, and make it better, but not worse. And I think part of it is I'm a little annoyed by VTrans, by the State Department of Transportation. When this whole project was started, the understanding was that the town had done so well with the bridge. Yep. That, well, we'll let you manage it, and I don't think the state has been. I think they've been disingenuous in that, and I think the town needs to have more say in how it's done. So I mean that's one issue. The other issue, obviously, is taxes. And how do we keep from having to raise taxes and yet at the same time maintain the services that we have, and perhaps others that we may not be aware of that we need. I mean, public safety is obviously a big issue.
Absolutely.
And if things become dangerous, then you have to address that. But then, maintaining roads, making sure the water supply is good. And I mean, when you hear about Flint, Michigan, you think that this is something that could happen elsewhere. Trying to increase the grand list by making the town's businesses and industries more vibrant and growing, and there's also the environmental question. I mean, how we need to make this transition to clean energy. But that's creating problems as well. Where are you going to put the power lines and things like that?
Hold everything in balance.
Yeah. So I mean, those are, I guess, probably the sort of issues. And I don't see anything big coming up in the sense that, I mean, they're all big in the sense. I mean, the railroad thing is just getting it done and getting it done in a way that keeps the town going while it's going on, and when it's done, having something that we can all say, "Gee, this is right. It's it's good."
Well, thanks so much for coming on the show. I think it's been such a pleasure.
And
I want to have you back on to talk about Locke and Plato.
Oh, all right. Okay.
So we'll have to set that up. Maybe after the election.
Yeah, yeah.
But thank you so much.
Well, I've enjoyed it very much.
Very informative, too.
Yeah, yeah. Right.
So until next time, drive safe, and may all your mischief be of the lawful persuasion.